Hello and welcome to Narrative Drivetime, a talk show where we talk to storytellers about storytelling. I'm Craig Colby. I've been telling stories on TV for 30 plus years as a producer, director of production, all of those things. And this is Mark Foerster. He is a top-notch director of photography, one of the best in the business. And today we're going to talk about visual storytelling, both the process and the ideas and things that you can use at home. So if you're interested in any type of storytelling, you should be listening to us today, particularly this guy, Mark Foerster. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Mark, first things first, I ask this a lot. How did you become director of photography?
I'm not even sure how it started, but I remember in 1975, I was in grade 5, and I remember taking a wind-up Super 8 camera and took some pictures of ice fishing. I went ice fishing with my dad and my godfather, and I don't know where that film is anymore. And that's 75. Then you get to 77, and a whole pile of people see a weird little science fiction film called Star Wars. And when you just kind of were thrown into that Star Wars environment, I just said, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to be a film director, or I want to be in the movies. I went to film school, and then I went to TV school, and then of course you need a job when you get out of TV school. And it's a little bit harder to break into the film business than it is to break into TV, because at the time there were a lot of TV stations. You need mobiles and news crews, and you have game shows going on, all sorts of things. So I worked at Global TV. I did my co-op, did a 3-month co-op at Global TV. Then for a couple years, I was like a studio rat. I was called a television assistant. I think we made $6 an hour. And we, helped out with everything from watering the set to helping people do lighting. It was a non-union place, so that was great, because that means you could do anything in the place. It wasn't like, no, you're not in this union or this union. And then finally, a camera job. I had seen that the guy in front of me got a camera job with the news department. And within a year and a half, he was a camera person. So I thought, okay, that's, I need a job. So I got into that. I became a cameraman at Global TV. And then in 2000, I went freelance, which is basically you have your own equipment and people call you and they give you, they have jobs that say, can you shoot for 1 week? Can you shoot for a day? And you basically wait for the phone to ring.
And boy, you weren't freelance very long before we started working together, because I believe I hired you for the first time in 2000.
Yeah.
And before that, while you were working at Global, I was directly behind you across the railroad tracks at TSN, doing much the same thing, doing whatever you could for very little money to learn everything you can and get ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
visual storytelling. This obviously, we both work in television. You can't tell the story without the pictures. The pictures are super important, but you don't enter the television storytelling process until later. People like me who are producing work with associate producers and researchers. We plan out the story. We think of the visuals, but as far as actually putting them together and putting them in the show, that doesn't really happen until you come into the picture. How does that process start for you?
Okay, so for the uninitiated, there are two sort of things you do. So we'll talk about the film thing. You have a script, and the script says, man walks into a bank, pulls out a gun, and robs bank. And it's all laid out for you, and you actually shoot as you go. But in factual programming, which would be the shows like you'd see on Discovery Channel or History or anything that is factual, that is real or reality, you don't really have control over those things. So you'll get a call and it'll be like, we're going to a blacksmith shop, and this guy who does blacksmithing from the old 1800s, like you would see, putting horseshoes on horses and stuff. So
I've done a lot of that.
I know you've done a lot, so that's why I use that. And I actually never shot at a blacksmith shop. But it could be a racetrack. It could be a aircraft carrier. I've spent some time on an aircraft carrier. And you just sort of, your mind starts to wander, like you always know when you're going to do a military story that you might look at the director and go, what do we want? We want a Top Gun shot here, which is, Maverick, and I feel the need for speed. It's a long telephoto shot of the guys with their buckets in there. Everybody knows that. So you start to use this common language, or that might happen in my head before we talk. So I may have a conversation with the director about what we're going to shoot. And that's always better if you can plan with somebody, because the more you talk about something, the more ideas come up. If you just show up on set, which is what I did yesterday, I just got an address, I showed up. We had emails of the environment, so I knew what kind of lights to bring to make it look decent. It was actually very simple setup because I got those pictures. But sometimes you just show up and it's like, okay, you have 40 minutes to light a sit-down interview, like the way I'm sitting down now and I talk to somebody. So sometimes there's a lot of collaboration, usually on a long-form thing. If you were to call me and say, we're going to do a secrets of blacksmithing from the old days, that'd be a long conversation. We might have 10 conversations over a week, and you may send me pictures and things that are evocative, or even an example of the work from a movie or something like that, because we're doing like an hour. We want that hour to really be good. So that, the funny thing is, and we're going to be all over the map today because we could talk for 5 hours about this, but the more time you have to prepare for something, really the better it is. And sometimes it's not really even a question of money, because a lot of this communication happens, behind the scenes. Like it's an 8 o'clock call at night and we talk for 4 hours and come up with some really juicy ideas. Now, the last thing about Factual too is it's not a movie, so you don't have wardrobe, you don't have guys and ladies to drive trucks and equipment, you don't know what the room looks like, you don't have makeup, you don't have all these things. So we're always trying to sort of, bullshit resources. Like I might, just the other day I had to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and get a powder puff because I just wanted to have some makeup in case the person was shiny, because it's summer here in Toronto and people get shiny, and just a simple powder makes my shot go like this because I don't have this big sweaty guy on camera. And another quick thing, which you know all these things, Craig, because we work so long together, is tell the guests to bring a second shirt. Like I'm looking at your shot right now, you have a blue shirt and a red chair. That's pretty good. But had you wore a red shirt and we gave you a red chair, you wouldn't get that contrast. Like what I'm wearing is not great, actually. I didn't do my homework. I'm on a baby shirt. I'm just saying.
I was going to talk to you about that. My older brother actually told me I shouldn't be wearing shirts like this because I don't look formal enough. But
you're fine.
Brothers listen to each other.
Yeah. So in the end, in the television world, in the factual world, maybe documentary is a good way to sort of give it an overlapping genre. You sort of pick and pull what you can together, like bring a wooden stool from your house. Maybe I need some curtains. How can we bring it up? It's usually low budget or no budget. You're showing up, you get the room that you get.
And when you work with somebody for a long time on a series, usually a lot of planning goes into the demo you're going to show people for what the show looks like. You work out, the meta of we're going to use, because I worked on a show that was about history making, about people making things. We knew it was a lot of tabletop. So we knew there was going to be a lot of prime lenses and short focal lengths, which for people at home, you'll explain it better than I am. It means it's not a zoom camera. It shoots in this range. You move the camera to get in there, and my finger may be in focus, my face is out of focus. Mm-hmm. It looks fantastic. You see that on I'm going to draw a blank on the name of the show, but there are shows that use that to. It's visually interesting. It's not the way your eyes see.
You're seeing a lot more. You're seeing a lot more high quality shots in documentary series because of like computers, the advancement of the equipment. So you're getting. Yes. Are really starting to look like a Hollywood blockbuster if you know what to do. The shots are looking better. The focal lengths are better. You have the prime lenses, which is something we never used to use. Before it was kind of like a City Pulse camera. You run around like an ENG cameraman from Channel 7 local news. There's only so much you can do with that.
Yeah, the show I was thinking of was The Handmaid's Tale, which has the very beautiful, fine focal.
Breaking Bad, any one of those big series.
Yeah, and when the work that we did, you and I would have done originally, the ENG stuff. I mean, you just don't have time for that. You need that zoom lens that's going to get there and there and there. You're there for a half an hour now and you get your pictures.
It was actually harder to make it look good back in the day. I know
it was harder. But a lot of the prepping goes into the look of the show, and then you actually execute the look of the show, especially when you're working with somebody long-term. When you get there on the day and you're watching a process, both you and I have done a lot of process work. What goes into your thought process when you're looking at sequencing?
Sequencing is kind of inherent to humans anyway. So you and I did a food, Craig and I did a food show, and we went to many factories. We went to, we'll just use the example, we went to Battle Creek, Michigan, and did the whole story of cereal. And something like that is a little easier because it's like, you know, the oats come in on a truck and the truck unloads the oats, shot of oats cascading into a pile. Then some guy shows up or lady with a shovel and takes the oats out to the oat roaster. And, you know, and so on down the line, like a chocolate factory. You know, you get the cocoa, it's made in a butter, they make the little bonbons. Now you can see the conveyor belt with all of them. Then finally they get packaged, and you see that shot where the cellophane goes over it and that forklift drives it out, and that's the end of the sequencing. That's one kind of sequencing. Another kind of sequencing could be, let's say we're following around a politician on the campaign trail, which you will have zero control over. So now you're going what I would call almost live, which is, you know, we're going to meet the politician at his house, and we're going to follow him around as he canvasses and goes to various events. And these people do like 12 events a day. It's going to be a 12 or 14-hour day for us. So sometimes the sequencing can be haphazard, but if you have a good idea in your head and know what's happening, so he may be in his house putting on his coat and tie, getting ready to go, and I know I need to get a shot of him getting picked up by his car or getting into his own car. So I'll break early. So I'll think ahead of time. So you're thinking like an editor. What would an editor want? Well, an editor doesn't want 70 pounds of somebody getting ready. Suit, tie, shower, brush your teeth, open the doorknob, close the door, feet walking down the steps into the car. You're going to be wasting time doing that. So when you're doing visual storytelling for those people who are vlogging or trying to even shoot their kids doing something, you want to sort of hit the major marks. So I would get him putting his tie on and maybe kissing his loved one goodbye. Then I'm going to run outside, and I may have to stand there for 5 minutes, but I know he's coming out the door and he's getting into the car. And that's really the only shot I want. So he gets into the car, gets into his car. Now I get into a chase car and try to get ahead of him to go to his headquarters, because I know I want to get him coming in with all the people going yay to his first event. So you have to sort of leap ahead in time. But the thing I really want to impart is you need to think like an editor, the person editing the footage. So you should be loose. You should be like a basketball player or a football player calling an audible, but you should kind of know where the play is going. Stick to the play. Step out of line once in a while because something fantastic might happen. Somebody might put a pie in his face. Well, if that's what happens, go with the pie in the face. You're hoping these wild things, these reality moments happen, but you should have a playbook. Know, you know, I'm going from A to B to C to D, and then hopefully there'll be something spongy in the middle that will surprise everybody. That's what gives you those real moments.
Yeah, and the other thing, when you're talking about the sequence being here and here and not too much, you also don't want to get caught in what I call medium wide shot theater, where every shot is, you know, not wide enough for an establishing shot, not close enough to see anything interesting, but it's very easy to shoot the medium wide shot. So for anybody doing this at home, one thing they forget a lot is vary your shot. Tight. If you want the biggest secret is shoot it 3 times, shoot it tight, shoot it medium, shoot it wide, and your editor can never be mad at you.
Right. If your child was blowing bubbles, you would get a wide shot from head to toe. Then you get a medium shot from the belt of their pants to the top, and you can see the ring with the bubble coming out, and then a close-up of his or her face, lips. You know, there we're thinking like an editor, 1, 2, 3. It's really quite natural for humans to think this way because you have a visual system, you have an audio system, and we're really just transplanting that into a device.
Yeah, they say certain directors, you know, they basically cut the show on the camera. They shoot things in sequence and that's it. And I know you've done a lot of sequencing that the editor can just pop it together, which is great. And then, you know, the process things we've done. An editor I interviewed just last week or the week before. Anyway, Dave White said he wouldn't even look at the script. He'd start by cutting together the sequence, and then you can fit the script in after that. Yeah.
It can also be, you can sometimes make it look too pat and too, I don't want to say slick, but it can be sometimes too much. Like, here is a shot, and here is a shot, and here is a shot. So for every 3 shots that are sort of like deliberate wide shot, you know, person goes up the stairs, close up of the doorknob being turned, there should be what I call it being dirty. So you want something to be to either really be a real moment or make it look like it's a real moment, which is you're coming with the camera a little bit late to the party, or you're not, they call it shaky cam. That's why people do a lot of handheld, because it seems more real.
Yeah, it feels like a person there.
Feels like a person there. I mean, that is head chasing, but I guess in the end you have to follow humans doing their thing. But yeah, sequencing is good. And just don't overdo your sequences, because you might blow your whole day sequencing something, and then they're finally getting to the real thing, and you've got no more time, or you have to leave, or you're not being paid anymore and you're doing extra time. So sequencing is important. And at the beginning, we all over sequence to learn how to sequence. But you should have a sequence to get into something and a sequence to get out of something, and the middle should be real.
Yeah, there are nice little breaks in the middle too. Usually, I think we kind of got some of the, if you didn't get the sequencing as you're going, do that again, get this, let's get in tight. It's something you kind of do at the end once you've got the meat. It is the best condiment in your visual sandwich. And use a Mark Foerster type saying.
That's right. The visual sandwich. I'm really kind of mixing themes here, though. When you're sequencing at a chocolate factory, we all know how the chocolate factory is going to go. We're going to do an interview with a chocolatier. We're going to show the process of the chocolates. That is sequencing as much as you want to do, and you can control that whole situation. The other one is I'm following a live politician in the presidential election, and I don't know where he's going. So I'll be happy to just get a 2 or 3 shot sequence to get me in and out of scenes, which can just be people getting into cars. Actually, if you can get it for real, then it's got this energy. There's nothing more real than a real moment.
Absolutely.
It's self-policing. You have no choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these observational docs, you're basically live anyway, right? You've got to make sure you get all that stuff. So the niceties go out the window, and it's make sure your camera's on that content.
They don't like you being there a lot of the times. It's not that they don't like you being there. They're like, okay, you can come along for the ride, but don't get in my way, and don't slow me down.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to talk about one other aspect of your work. In television, there are sort of some natural partners. There's the editor and the story editor, and out in the field, there's the director and the director of photography. And those can be beautiful working relationships, and those can be butting heads and stepping on toes.
Yeah.
What is the ideal working relationship for you with a director?
Well, as your career goes along, you start to know your directors and know what they like. So there's the old thing you always read. I would still read it, an American cinematographer. I don't even have to say anything. He knows, or she knows, what I like, and they usually present it to me. I do think that when you have, you could say this to anything. When you have a difficult person, or what you perceive as difficult, maybe it's a flip and you're the difficult one, you need to recognize that if things are going if things are tense and nothing can be decided upon, somebody has to relinquish. And in my view, it's the DP that needs to do that, because the director has a certain idea in their head, and it sounds so trite to say it, but you really do want to forward the director's vision. And sometimes that vision may not be your vision, but you can try to negotiate and say, I think we should do this like this. Or sometimes you can just kind of slide it in and move the camera over, and they'll look at the monitor and they'll go, that actually is a better angle. Another way you can get around conflict on set is to do it both ways. Now that takes extra time, meaning you're going to do it twice. You're going to do it the director's way and your way. And if there's sometimes time, you can do a hybrid where you're kind of throwing in a couple shots that you wanted to put in. I have a cameraman friend of mine who has a phrase. He goes, at the end of the shoot, he'll say something like, yeah, it's all good. There's just a couple extra things I want to pick up. And he means well, I got to get a couple cutaways of maybe the chocolates or the conveyor belt or something. But what he's really doing is taking the shots that he missed or that he wanted to get during the sequencing or during the thing. And that's a confrontational way to do things. Sometimes you do have enough time to do it a couple ways, which just makes everybody happy. And then the editor, it'll prove itself out in the edit.
Yeah, having been in a variety of roles, for me, it always comes down to who's going to have to answer for this. And whoever's going to have to answer for it should probably respect
the director,
their call. Well, it's the director there. With the story editor and the editor, I'm not sure who answers for that. But when it's a director talking to a producer, are you responsible for it? Yes. For me, I've talked about this in the pre-interview. I have no idea if I'm a good director or not. I know I've got things that help me get things for the editor to put things together. But for my approach, it was almost always with a good shooter like you. I tell you what I want, and then you get it. And if there's a particular way I want it, we talk about that. So, the first lesson I learned in TV and the first day, the first person I worked with was an editor, and he said, I'm going to give you one piece of advice. Don't nickel and dime me. So I've tried not to nickel and dime people my whole career. You got to respect their skills. So for me, when we work together,
manage, you mean like every time they do something, you're like, are you sure you should do that?
Don't do anything until I tell you it's okay. I'm going to get in the camera. I'm going to frame it, move this, move this. If you're good, I'm going to let you be good. And I don't know as much about camera as you do, but I know what I want. I need this. And my favorite shoot, one of my favorite shoots with you, there's so many good ones, was we had to go down and pick up a ton of shots for a show on
Amusement parks.
The amusement parks. It's called Ultimate Access Amusement Parks. And we had, I think, 2 days to shoot visuals of the park in the straddled North and South Carolina. And then we had to shoot the spine of the story, which was this psychologist training people who hate roller coasters to get on a roller coaster with a loved one who loves roller coasters.
Scared, like it was like a fear of flying thing. That was cool. That was a really interesting.
It worked too. But the way we worked that is, we had all these roller coasters. We knew which one we were on. I would say, can we get this? Can we get this shot? And then I would go off and look for the next shot. And that actually helped me with another lesson for directing. And I'll talk to better directors in this show later, which is, while the cameraman's getting the shot, you actually have the opportunity to look at the scene and see what's happening that they can't see while they're shooting.
Yes.
So for me, that's the best way to work with a good cameraman.
Yes. And a lot of times you could break it down that the camera person is going to, pick a good angle for probably the ambient lighting that's available. Work the scene out practically. That DP is so involved with his or her equipment and the blocking of the scene that they're actually not watching the scene. I mean, they are, but that's where the director is. So in a way, one chef is sort of, creating the cake and everything, but he may not even be looking at the cake or tasting it. And the director is going, I'm not sure this is the cake we should be making, or the words that are being said by the people, like the performance of the characters on camera, is definitely the responsibility of the director. So in a way, Craig might look at what I'm look in a monitor and say, yeah, I like that. That's good. And I may look at him and go, he looks straight at the camera during that scene, or he looks sad. I think we need to do another one. So it's kind of like I'm doing 90% of my job and 10% of your job, and you're doing 90% of your job and 10% of my job. So we're kind of helping each other out. This, of course, is indicative of low budget. And I don't want to say like Skid Row, no budget. We're not eating, chocolate bars and living in a tent. We go to hotels and they pay us per diem and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, on a big film crew, you might have somebody might visit the amusement park a month ahead of time for like 2 weeks or a week, and they would know exactly where the shots is. That doesn't happen. Yeah. We arrive as sometimes a 2 or 3 person team. You would have a sound man, and within, I don't know, 40 minutes, we have to be up and shooting, like getting this stuff laid down. So it's a real, a lot of times it seems like you're moving equipment and planning and blocking, and you're meeting people for the first time, and you've got to grab this roller coaster guy who's designed the roller coaster and say, please stand here this way with the roller coaster behind you, and can you now, in about 10 seconds, put together a nice 20-second thought on how you designed the roller coaster? Go. And so our guests are challenged. We're all kind of making quick team.
Yeah. And then if you're someone like Sam Linton, who's a good friend of both of ours, you will stand there and frame the guy between the loop of the roller coaster and ask your question and wait for the roller coaster to come and say, answer now.
Right.
And they'll answer as the roller coaster is looping around their head.
And that's an example of taking it up a notch, because you look at your watch and I might say to you, or you might say to me, you know what, it would be great. Obviously, it's the roller coaster shot. So I always say, when you have lots of time, you can do that. So for the older folks out there, I used to say it's like Dynasty in the morning, which means Dynasty the show. It's like you're taking your time, taking all these shots because it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're making sure everything looks really good. And then at 2 p.m. you go, holy shit, we're not going to make our day. And you're just like running around getting shots like a wedding photographer, because the park's closed at 5 and you're just you're grabbing quality, but your tempo is definitely faster.
Sometimes that's best. I should also add, for anybody out there who's thinking of hiring me for director, I'm an excellent director.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I'm bad. I'm really, really, really good. You should hire me. Let's just move on to something else.
And me too.
You should hire Mark Foerster. If everybody doesn't know that, then
COVID,
yeah, that's
opening up a little bit. But
he is a good guy. We talked a little bit in the pre-interview about best interview shots. What are the most powerful interview shots when you're shooting people?
Oh, well, I think this shot, I wish I could demonstrate it. It's the eyebrow to under the chin close up. So I think that shot, in whether it be a film, where the lawyer says you can't handle the truth, or a documentary series where somebody's talking about war and genocide, or how they lost their family in the Holocaust. I mean, a close up. I don't like saying that there are rules ever, because creating visual storytelling in the utmost should be an open page for anybody, because that's what makes creativity exciting, because we don't want to tell you that there are rules. But I got to say, that's a pretty good shot. Now, that said, in the new world of cinematography and with the price of cameras, we're almost always rolling 2 cameras. So you're, this shot here, and then you've got a second camera here, so you can choose later. So you have the best.
Yeah, you've got one that's head to chest, and another one that's on the chin, and usually you'll see, especially in shows that rely so much on clips, like crime shows, they'll actually have one camera that's basically head on and one that's off to the side, to make for easy cuts when you don't have a lot of cover, and you're going to be chopping down sentences.
And what's great about it too is you don't have to go to a cutaway, because if you have somebody saying A, B, and C, and you want to pull B out and put A and C together, you can go from that wide shot to that close up without having to go to the chocolate visuals for a split second. Otherwise, their head would move when you do the splice in what they're saying. So cameras are, I like it. It's a little more work for the camera person, but that's the way. Sometimes 3 cameras.
If you can, it's been a real advantage of the price of cameras coming down. I want to ask you about two more things. We're going to get through them really quickly before we go here. So much of the storytelling now, and I guess has always been, but now that there's so many toys to play with, is the actual equipment you can use. And in the History in the Making show, I'll give you the example that the last item we shot was a woman who made a signet ring for us. We were worried that the item wouldn't be dynamic enough. It was all on a tabletop, but because we got that really macro lens on there, it showed you things the way your eye doesn't see them. That item just popped. It worked so well. Yeah. How much thinking do you do ahead of time about what equipment you can use helps you tell the story?
It depends on the camera person. I personally have, like a lot of camera people, DPs, I have a ton of equipment. So you kind of don't want to have to get into this. I need to run out to the rental house to get this, and I need to go get this. You want to have like a good sort of swath of equipment. These days it's drones, it's sliders, there's jibs. These are all different camera control devices. But sometimes you have to get into, this will cause more phone calls and more pre-production on the behalf of the DP and the director. For example, we'll go back to that shoot, which is, I don't know how, at the amusement park. We had to get a pencil camera, which was a little tiny camera that went on the end of a pole, so that we could reverse, so we could show the people going down the roller coaster. The people who were afraid of roller coasters, we needed to film them. So that's a good example of a special piece of kit that we had to buy. And it had to, it was a tiny little camera that was showing the front seat on the roller coaster. And Craig and I were on the next seat back, and there was this is back in the tape days.
Not in all of them, we weren't.
No, we were.
We ended up in the show.
We did end up in the show. But I remember I had to ride that roller coaster, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times. I almost couldn't read the newspaper. I was so bored, but I had to sit there and babysit the tape deck. But sorry, go ahead. Next one.
The last one. There's so many people communicating in so many different ways now. From what you do, what is a pointer or an idea that people can take away to help in their own everyday communication?
Well, as you know, story is number one. So if you have something interesting, I get a lot of people will walk up to me, a lot of lay people will walk up and go, "Wow, you have the greatest job in the world. I really wish I could do what you do." Young people who are in high school or in college, maybe they haven't figured out what they want to do. And I'm like, if you have a great story, you can tell it. You just need a camera and you need a microphone. You need to, it will take you a weekend to figure out the rudimentary things to say. I got it. I laid it down to the SD card, and the audio level wasn't too hot, and my exposure was right. And everybody has, people have relatives that were in great wars, people with great stories to tell. Myself, I keep telling people around me that the older relatives, the grandparents, like for me, the grandparents and the parents, get a camera and record your parents' story, or somebody who has a great story. So it's really about, this is like trite again, but it really is about story. The story could be about how somebody makes fudge at a local fair. The story could be that a Korean or Vietnam War vet who lives down the street, and you can just sit that person down in a chair after you figure out how to get everything going. Equipment is cheap. You can do it with off-the-shelf stuff from Best Buy, and you can tell any story you want. Like I said, I don't want to limit it. It's really easy to do, and the tutorials on YouTube, you couldn't live 100 lifetimes and watch all of them. If you want to know how to operate a camera, if you want to know how the gear works, it's on YouTube. And then just find a compelling story that is interesting to you. It should be interesting to you. Otherwise, you're not going to be motivated. So I think everybody can do it, and everybody is doing it. You see the amount of vlogging going on.
Yeah, I have one tip for anybody who's starting to shoot things, and that's put the camera where your eye usually isn't. And that's, people won't know why they're interested in the shot, but that is why they're interested in the shot. And you talk about anybody can do it. My oldest son had an assignment for class, and he wanted to make a video, and my youngest son said, "Can I shoot it?" And so we shot my son's presentation. We used our big screen TV in the background as a background. It was about space and everything. So we put space visuals up there, and we had a little crew. Yeah. And my oldest son was the performer and writer, and I was the director, and my youngest son was the shooter and editor. And it was great. This was a COVID project, and we created this visual show. And, it was just like a crew. My youngest son would give pointers to my oldest son.
And a lot of people
can do it.
A lot of people have hobbies already. So you're just televising your hobby. Like I like guitar. So I watch a lot of guitar videos. I just watch them. And some of these guys are doing it like really low tech. Like now you can use a phone. If you want to get as low tech as possible, use a phone and then bring it into an editing program. That's a good way to start.
You can edit it on your phone.
You can edit it on your phone. It's ridiculous. And here's another tip. Just keep your first one short, just like how filmmakers make short films. You don't want to do a 5 minutes, giant thing. Just try something that's a minute. And if that works out, then you can expand or just change the subject.
And there's no substitute for volume. So if you want to make stuff, make it, show it to people, have them criticize it, and then just keep learning from the stuff you've made. And if you don't like the first one, the next one will be better.
Yeah, I heard some filmmakers say you just keep making shorts until they don't suck.
Well, this one story, I think I've maybe even told it on this show before, is Glenn Fry from the Eagles used to follow Bob Seger around. And he said to Bob Seger, I really want to start writing songs, but I'm afraid they're going to suck. And Bob said, well, they're going to. But if you write enough songs, soon they won't suck.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's right. Don't be afraid to suck.
Yeah. In fact, that's what they say. You're not really doing anything unless you are making mistakes. And I make them to this day. I still am learning every day. And because of this whole elastic nature of documentary filmmaking, like you don't know who you're getting, you don't know where you're filming, you don't know this and that, you're going to make mistakes. And you learn every day. Like it's a never ending learning process.
Never stop learning. Mark Foerster, my good buddy, great DOP. One of my favorite collaborators ever. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your insight into storytelling, visual storytelling with everybody and me, because I learn something in this all the time.
Thanks, Craig. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right. That's it for Narrative Drive Time. Are you a storyteller who wants to tell the story of how you tell stories? Yes. Then I want to hear from you. Drop me a line at craig@colbyvision.net and tell me a little bit about yourself, your career, and some of the particulars of your process. Colby Vision is a storytelling company working in the broadcasting and the business world. Send me an email if you need help with either. Thanks to Tim Vesely for the music, and Kevin Francisco for the graphics, and Dave White for the editing. And thanks to you for watching Narrative Drive Time.